I gotta get a haircut.
That is a perfect entrance to the show. Alrighty, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of In Depth with David. We are back after an extended bye week. I have personally missed the last couple of games of coverage here against Green Bay and Detroit, but we're back to cover the game here. Coming up against the Browns tomorrow, I'm David. I'm joined by my co-host Chris. Chris, how are you doing today, my friend?
Hey, what's up?
Besides needing
Good.
a haircut.
Yeah, I know. I didn't realize we were live just yet, but a blooper, I guess. Anyways, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, no, we'll add that to the blooper reel at the end of the season. Yeah, so good to hear that you're good. I just want to explain to everyone why I was gone the last couple of weeks is because for the Packers game I was busy with schoolwork, and last week I was also busy with schoolwork because I was preparing the day before the game to go to the game. So I was actually at Gillette Stadium for the game last week against the Lions. Excellent game, 29-0 shutout. Got to see the throwback jerseys, got a cool rally towel. Got to see Bailey Zappi's first start. It's a fun game all around. Not every day you get to say that you saw an NFL shutout, but I was able to. So, very fun time last week. Great game. And yeah, the Patriots have a little bit of momentum here heading into this game against the Browns tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern in Cleveland. Both teams are 2-3 heading into week 6. And this is the second straight year that these two teams are matching up against each other. And I don't know if you realize this, but when I was doing my pre-show prep for this game against the Browns, Chris, there's been a lot of fun, memorable matches between these two teams in the last decade.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, just last year I thought it was going to be a competitive game, and then all of a sudden we took over that game. So then I don't remember. I think it was a cup. I think then before that, a couple years ago, it was I think a back and forth matchup. But yeah, it's been memorable because our coach Bill Belichick was was he the head coach or was he a defensive coordinator with the Browns?
He was the head coach.
He was actually the head coach. Okay, so yeah, so I guess there's a little bit of rivalry there. So
Yes, so the Patriots, as much as we've kind of just hyped up this somewhat of a rivalry in the last 30 seconds, the Patriots have won the last 4 matchups between these two teams. The 2013 matchup between these two teams was an epic game. This game, Rob Gronkowski blew out his knee, but the Patriots were able to come back from being down 26-14 with less than 2 minutes in the game to win. We scored a touchdown late, throwing it to Brady threw it to Edelman, and he got hit hard in the back of the end zone. That made it a one-score game, but we needed to convert on an onside kick, and we hadn't done that for like 20 years up until that point. And Gosowski and the special teams nailed it to perfection. Pats recovered the onside kick. Then I think we drew an offensive pass interference or defensive pass interference call deep down the field. Brady threw it to Josh Boyce, and then Brady had a rollout touchdown to Danny Amendola. Then we took the lead there. The Browns started marching down the field with little time left, and I believe it was Billy Cundiff was the kicker for the Browns, and they had a chance to win the game at the end, but he missed like a 55-yarder. So that was a wild game where the Patriots came back from being down 2 scores with right around 2 minutes left in that game to win. In 2016, this game was a blowout. The Patriots won 33-13. Martellus Bennett had 3 touchdowns, but this game was special because this was Brady's first game back from his Deflategate suspension, so he took all of his anger out on a depleted Browns team. And then 2019 was the year that the Browns had Odell Beckham Jr. That was his first year with Cleveland. Baker Mayfield was the quarterback, and our defense, which is too good that game and for pretty much that whole season, 2019, we forced so many turnovers, so many careless mistakes by the Browns. We won that game easily. And then last year, as you talked about, was just another blowout of the Browns, 45-7. Mac Jones threw for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. Maybe his best game as a pro. But yeah, definitely a lot of fun games between these two teams for sure. But this is 2 different teams so far heading into this game from a year ago. Cleveland, this past offseason, as we all know, acquired Deshaun Watson in a trade, as well as Amari Cooper. We won't be seeing Deshaun Watson this offseason, this game, as he's still suspended. But Jacoby Brissett will be the quarterback for the Browns. Jacoby Brissett was drafted by New England and actually started a game for us his rookie year, but we traded him for the 2017 season, started with the Colts, and he's bounced around the league since then. And Amari Cooper began his career with Dallas, then he went to the Raiders, now he's with Cleveland. Cleveland drafted a wide receiver, David Bell, but him, along with all their other draft prospects such as Cade York, Alex Wright, and Perion Winfrey, haven't amounted to much yet for Cleveland. But Alex Wright may have a big opportunity tomorrow for Cleveland with Jadeveon Clowney being ruled out. So this could definitely be a big opportunity for him. What do you think about? What are your takes on Amari Cooper so far this season for Cleveland, Chris? Because he's always been a reliable receiver going back to his days at Alabama, then transferring those skills to Dallas, then the Raiders. Now Cleveland, he's off to a hot start. I think he's got to be one of the more underrated wide receivers in the league.
No, yeah, I feel like that too. I just think Dallas made a huge mistake of getting rid of him, making CeeDee Lamb his number one receiver, and trading him basically for nothing, a 5th-round pick. I mean, that's a steal the Browns got, and they're utilizing him pretty well. There were a few games that he was kind of like a ghost. You know, he had like maybe 1 or 2 catches, you know, in like 1 or 2 games. But overall, he's been basically I would say 50% of at least their passing game, because their run game has been helping them a lot. And then when they need to pass, it's just basically always him that they go to. So he's more versatile than people think he is.
And we're going to get to the Patriots injury report now. So just ruled out a few hours ago by the Patriots were wide receiver Nelson Aguilar with a hamstring injury and cornerback Jonathan Jones with an ankle injury. Jonathan Jones, losing him is a big blow as he's been off to a great start this year for New England as our true number one quarterback for the first time in his career. So guys like Jack Jones and Jalen Mills are going to have to step up to the plate. And Nelson Aguilar has had a bit of a rough stretch so far this year. It's been another kind of Jekyll and Hyde experience. He had the great catch against Pittsburgh, but he fumbled the ball, which led to the Ravens basically taking over and winning the game from there, or icing the game at that point. And then last week against Detroit, Zappe threw a very catchable ball to him, and Aguilar bobbled it, which led to an interception. So I don't, and this, let me just broach this to you, and you may completely disagree with me on this, but like, do you think Aguilar is really injured, or do you think that the Patriots are like making an excuse just to kind of like put him on the shelf for a week? And I don't want to accuse anyone of faking injuries or anything, but it just seems like something like, I feel like Nelson Aguilar just showed up to practice and they're like, come on, just like tell us that you're injured, or like tell us that something's bothering you. And he's like, well, my hamstring. Oh, okay, hamstring injury, you're done. What do you think about that?
Well, I feel like with some injuries you can fake it. It depends. What did they list it as? Like his injury?
Hamstring injury.
Hamstring? I mean,
so I think he's hurt. Like, I think that's bothering him, but I feel like the Patriots are just using it as an excuse to sit him out. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think they could. Although there's been a couple of hamstring injuries throughout the league, like with Keenan Allen. Like he's been having like a really hard time with his hamstring. And then with Chris Godwin, he had a hard time with his hamstring. So it's, I mean, you could say that just because, you know, you don't want to say, hey, we're going to, you know, kick you to the curb and have someone else be another star wide receiver, you know, in place of you. So I guess because his performance has been, like you said, it's been up and down lately. And they've been seeing him as the number 2 receiver behind Jacoby Myers. But I mean, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily agree with you, but it's not out of the realm of possibility of that happening.
It just seems like they're trying to substitute an injury for just benching someone for poor performance. And I'm sure that this is certainly something that's hindering Aguilar. Maybe not as much as the Patriots are trying to make all of us think it is, because Aguilar seems like he's been moving fine I mean, that's what I noticed when literally watching the game in person
Mhm.
last Sunday. But no, I mean this is definitely a
Yeah.
borderline controversial subject to discuss, and I don't want any Patriots workers coming at me and flagging this stream for any reason. But
Yeah.
no, I mean I hope the best for Aguilar. He seems like a great energy guy, but I just over the years I've always wondered if teams like in any sport really do stuff like that, where it's like they're not like truly injured, but they have a nagging injury, and we're just using this to as an excuse to bench them.
Yeah, I
But
don't want to go through like conspiracy theories or
right.
anything, but maybe this is a tall tale sign that the rookie is probably going to get a better chance of playing because I
Tyquan
think
Thornton.
Taekwon Thornton. I think he caught a couple of balls last week, so I think he was actually in the game. So they might use him as more of like a rotation and seeing how he plays next week because I think Jacoby Myers is fine this week. I know you didn't. I don't think you listed him on the injury report, so it'd be Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, and then Tyquan Thornton. He'll be more like the rotation guy, but you had to kick someone out to have him play more. So I guess Aguilar's been the up and down sort of guy, so that's the target.
Yeah, so Tyquan Thornton did have 2 catches last week in his NFL debut in the second half, and we'll get into that for sure. But it looks like him and Kendrick Bourne could have a bigger role this week. So those were the 2 players that were ruled out by New England earlier. They still have 8 people who are questionable for the game. Defensive end Lawrence Guy is questionable with a shoulder injury. Damian Harris with a hamstring injury sustained last week. He only had 4 carries last week against Detroit. The big one, which we'll get into more in depth in a little bit, Mac Jones is questionable with an ankle injury. Raquan McMillan, the linebacker, questionable with thumb injury. Jacoby Myers remains questionable with a knee injury. Jonnu Smith, questionable with ankle. Linebacker Josh Uche with a hamstring injury is questionable. And finally, defensive tackle Christian Barmore is questionable with a knee injury. So, of that group, I'd imagine Damian Harris won't play since Kevin Harris was just elevated to the 53-man roster this week. I don't think Jonnu Smith is ready to play yet. I think we're probably looking at another couple weeks until he's back because that ankle injury looks pretty painful against Green Bay. Other than that, I definitely think Myers is going to be fine. Like you said, he played last week. I think he's going to be good to go. But the biggest one, and this is going to be the question of the podcast personally for you, Chris, will Mac Jones play tomorrow?
Oh, it depends. I feel like you don't want to rush it, but if he feels fine, then maybe give him. I mean, I don't. You don't want to do the two QB, like flip flop like sometimes New Orleans does with Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. Giving them each a couple of snaps or so. But I mean, if you don't want to rush it, if you have a solid game plan with your rookie quarterback, I would say just leave him on the sideline, see what happens.
Yeah, so it's definitely significant that the Patriots did not rule out Mac Jones today. So Mac is going to be traveling to Cleveland. That's what that means. But I have a feeling that the Pats are going to try and push him to start because that's what the Patriots have done with QBs in the past. Like when Brady was suspended because of Deflategate, we had a game against Miami that year. I think it was the second game of the year where Garoppolo played great the first half, but then he got hurt. Then Brissett finished off the rest of that game, and we won. But heading into a quick week Thursday Night Football against the Texans, we thought, okay, Jimmy G went down with a shoulder injury. Or excuse me, I'm kind of messing up the timeline. But in that Thursday night game, Brissett also played, but in that game, he suffered a broken thumb.
Mm-hmm.
So Belichick's thinking, okay, well, we have 10 days off for this next game against Buffalo, last game before Brady comes back. Jimmy should have been healed by now from a shoulder injury. Jimmy was hesitant to play, but the Patriots were kind of like not manipulating him, but they were saying, like, Brady's played through worse. Like, what the heck? Why aren't you going to play through the shoulder injury? They were trying to force his hand. And then they were, last minute Saturday night, Garoppolo decides he's not playing, so we have to put in Brissett with a broken thumb injury, and we lose that game. I think we got shut out. But my point wrapping this whole thing around is that the Patriots are known to try and pressure their players to play when they may not be fully ready to play. Do you know Ted Johnson? He's on 98.5. He used to play for the Patriots. He was a linebacker back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
He came out and said that Belichick, this was years back, but he said that when he played for the Pats, Belichick made him play after suffering a concussion, even though he knew he wasn't ready. But Belichick wasn't really receptive to that or sympathetic of that. So I think the Patriots really want Mac to play tomorrow. But like you were saying earlier, I feel like Mac just isn't ready. And all these reports are coming out saying that a rift is growing between Belichick and Mac over this whole thing, whereas Belichick wants to get his franchise quarterback on the field, whereas Mac just wants to take the long game and protect his health because, that ankle injury, it's not listed as a high ankle sprain, but that was definitely a high ankle sprain he sustained against Baltimore. And that's not just a 2-week thing. So the smart thing is to have Zappy play tomorrow and just, rely on Ramondre Stevenson to get the job done and get Zappy some more in-game experience. And I think he'll be the starter tomorrow. I'm just going to say Zappy's going to be the starter tomorrow. But I really feel like Belichick is putting the pressure on Mac to be the starter, which is scary.
Yeah, I would use Mac Jones as more like an emergency backup because I'm trying to remember. There was one team, I think it was the 49ers, I think. One year it was or some other team, there was an injury to their backup quarterback, and then their franchise quarterback was injured on the sideline, and they decided to put him back in because the injury to the backup was so bad. I can't remember which team it was. But anyways, I feel like this game plan is kind of like gonna be the same as the Cowboys. Because with Dak Prescott being out with his thumb injury, they're just using Cooper Rush the same way as Bailey Zappi is kind of like a filler. I would say
it's like the Jimmy Garoppolo role. Just come in, be a game manager, but just focus on the run game.
Yeah, because their defense, the Cowboys and Patriots defense have been just dominating. So they're just using that as more, they're using that as like a cushion for what the offense has been lacking.
So I think we can both agree that we think Zappy's going to be the starter tomorrow, but Mac could be the backup.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes the most sense. Like, don't rush Mac out there. He's young. You just spent a first-round pick last year on him. He's the franchise guy. I think that's just the best option. Just put Zappy out there and then reevaluate this next week when I think we play the Bears or whoever. But what do you think about everyone in Boston sports media hyping up a potential quarterback controversy between Zappy and Mac Jones? They're treating Zappy, Mac Jones as the next Brady Bledsoe. Do you think that this is ridiculous? Do you think there's some merit to that?
I mean, Belichick, there is a reason why he picked another quarterback, because this could potentially happen. But I feel like it's too early to tell. It's not like an injury that, that Mac sustained was, like season ending, and then Bailey Zappi would play the whole season, and then they would see who would start next year. No, it's like he played about 3/4 of the Green Bay game, and then he played the full game of the Lions, and I think that's too small of a sample size to really tell who's going to be the starter, because he's been putting up just okay numbers. And I know Mac hasn't been doing as well, but Mac has definitely shown a lot more poise and more like confidence than Bailey Zappi, because I feel like when he was put in the game, in the Packers game, he felt like what the heck's going on? Why am I in? But he felt he got a lot more confident as time went on. So it's it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but I feel like it's way too early to tell.
Definitely. And the sample size of his first full game in the NFL being against Detroit, which had the worst defense in the
Yeah.
league, lots of injuries. You can't take too much stock in that. But I mean, Bailey Zappi seems to have been doing everything that the coaches have been asking of him, which is just protecting the ball and not trying to force anything and just letting the more experienced players on the team do all the work. But I will say, if Zappi is in for a few more games and the Patriots keep winning with Zappi under center, regardless of how he performs, maybe Belichick turns to him because it's hard to deviate from a strategy that produces winning football. So if, like you said, Zappi just stays the course and maybe just keeps playing and producing mediocre stats like 150, 200 yards a game, one touchdown, one pick, but we're winning. Like if we win 3 in a row with Zappi under center, 4 in a row with Zappi under center, why would you deviate from that when we keep winning? That's the only instance I could see a quarterback controversy happening. But I think a lot of this is just smoke and mirrors from the Pats with Belichick not naming a starting quarterback this week to the media, and just members of Boston sports media wanting to hype this up so they get money and views. So
Yeah.
it's way too early, I think, but it's something fun to talk about. And I mean, if we keep winning with Zappi, you never know. And it seems like the players love playing for Zappi. They've been really excited. And during the Green Bay game, they were hyped for him. Last week against Detroit, it was hype. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. But it adds an interesting element to the season for the Patriots for sure. So moving on from that, Jadeveon Clowney was ruled out for the Browns, and that is a huge loss for Cleveland. I have all the faith in the world that Jadeveon Clowney would have feasted on Isaiah Wynn or Marcus Cannon on that side of the line. So it is good for us that he is not playing, but hope he's okay. Denzel Ward, their top corner, being out is also good news for the Patriots, but bad news for the Browns. So the Browns are without 2 of their top players on defense, which is huge for the Pats. But the Browns did get a little bit of a boost as their corner, Greedy Williams, is back and activated off of injured reserve. He played all 16 games last year. He'll be making his season debut this week against us. And one last note on Cleveland is if their offensive guard, Joel Bitonio, is out, that's a big blow for their offensive line. So a lot of key injuries and key inactives potentially for Cleveland. And I definitely feel for them. I mean, I'm no fan of the Cleveland Browns, and I hope we beat them this Sunday. But you look at all their injuries, and it's not just like some depth players and some special teamers who are injured. These are some like big key guys who are going to be on the shelf for them.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, if Myles Garrett was added to the list, then it would be, I would say, not a walk in the park, but I mean, their whole defense is kind of like based off of those guys like you mentioned, because the game that you mentioned with 2013 with the Browns and Pats, they choked the lead. Kind of had the deja vu back, this year with the Jets. They were up 2 touchdowns and they choked that away, I believe, with those guys. So without them, I can't imagine what the outcome of this game is going to be without them.
Do you have any specific key matchups that you'd like to point out when talking about the Patriots defense versus the Browns offense?
Oh, that's kind of tough. So you said the Browns offense, or?
Yep. So the Browns offense versus the Patriots defense.
Ooh, that's kind of tough. I would say definitely whoever's cover. I think Jack Jones on Amari Cooper is definitely going to be an interesting one. I don't think Miles should be on him based on because he
God no.
I mean, based on what his production's been this year, it's not that great. I would say, and then also I believe he got hurt last week a little bit. I think during the Lions game he got a little hurt. I think on the sideline. Yeah, I think the rookie's up for the challenge, because he's pretty quick and versatile since Jonathan Jones isn't there. And then I think maybe Jarrell Peppers on David Njoku. Maybe that's a good one, I would say, or Miles on that one, I would say, because they've been using their tight end a lot more lately. I feel like it's just them two.
Yeah, so I'll get into my key matchups here. Where mine is it's pretty general one, like a general group versus a general group. But I'm saying the Patriots front line scheme versus the Browns front offensive line. So the name of the game with Cleveland, as we know, is running the ball. We've gone almost over 25 minutes without even mentioning Nick Chubb's name. Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs in the league, and the Patriots have always struggled, especially in recent years, with their run defense. So Cleveland this year, as you kind of hinted at, Chris, loves to use tight ends and extra linemen and formations to create space in the run game. They will bring in two tight ends. They'll put seven people in the box, the five offensive linemen, and then sometimes two tight ends, or the five offensive linemen. Then a sixth offensive lineman is a tight end, and another true tight end. They'll do anything to create holes for Chubb. And they also have Kareem Hunt, who's a solid backup running back in Cleveland. But if I were to pinpoint a specific matchup that I'd like to point out, it's going to be Kyle Duggar versus David Njoku. Because Duggar, since we drafted him, has been great in the run in the pass game. And we've tasked him, especially this year, with covering the tight ends for other teams. We missed that against Baltimore when Duggar was hurt. He would have been great covering Mark Andrews, hopefully. He did a great job last week in all aspects of the game, covering Hutchinson on the or Hawkinson, whatever his name is, the tight end of Detroit. I get him confused because there's two people with similar names on that team. And Njoku is definitely going to be no easy task for Duggar, assuming that he's on him, both in the blocking game and in the catching game. Njoku's a solid tight end. But Duggar is just another underrated player, I think, in the league, and has been another solid draft pick by Bill Belichick. And we got him in the fifth round in the 2020 draft. So he should have a big role tomorrow. Now we're going to fizzle into just talking about the Browns offense as a whole with Jacoby Brissett. So I watched some tape on Jacoby's game last week against the Chargers, and Jacoby, I didn't even realize this. It's been a while since I watched him play. I think the last time I watched him play was when he was with us all those years ago. But I thought he was more mobile than what was given off. And what I mean by that is he's definitely a mobile quarterback that can run around and he's fast. But he's a natural pocket passer. Like, he doesn't like to scramble. He is very comfortable in the pocket and loves to just air the ball out in the gun and throw it from there. The Browns love to utilize play action to get defenses to sell out on run attempts, hoping that defenses that blitz will allow the receivers to get open. As you talked about earlier, Amari Cooper and Njoku are two of Brissett's favorite targets so far this year, and Donovan Peoples-Jones is a third favorite target of his. Chubb is one of the best running backs in the league, as we just talked about. Kareem Hunt, solid complimentary back. So how do you combat all this? Because the Browns' offense is certainly a powerhouse. They can do a lot of different things well. Jacoby Brissett is holding down the fort until Watson comes back from Cleveland. They run the ball well, as we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we put a lot of pressure in the box to force Brissett out of the pocket and kind of scramble, that's obviously certainly risky because Jacoby Brissett has the legs to turn scrambles into 10, 15-yard runs. And it's hard to bring him down as he's like 6'4", 6'5". So that's certainly risky. But I think you kind of have to try and make Brissett uncomfortable in the pocket. And you just can't let him sit in there and, have all day to throw or get comfortable with just throwing in the pocket to people like Cooper. So Evan Lazar at Patriots.com suggested that we do the 6-1 defensive formation again. So that's what we did in the Super Bowl against the Rams. You're going to have six people on the front line and then just one linebacker. So you're stuffing the box. And it's basically kind of like a foolproof strategy on how to stop the run, which is what we did to the Rams in the Super Bowl. So if we were to pull out this formation, I feel confident that we can definitely stuff the run. And it makes sense to do this because the Browns are a run heavy team with one of the best running backs in the league in Chubb. But what are your thoughts on potentially bringing back that formation, the 6-1, in this game against Brissett and the Browns
No, I mean it worked well against the Lions, who heavily
and the
run
Lions? Yep.
with DeAndre Swift, who wasn't there, but Jamal Williams was definitely their number two, who's been pretty solid. But then we kind of stuffed them a lot, last week. And I noticed that they were using a lot more. The Lions were using a lot more screen passing and using a lot more, I would say, wheel routes to the running back because of what we've been doing inside the box. So that's something to look out for. And then I feel like for the passing game, we definitely should be like man on man, not like not like zone, because I feel like Jacoby Brissett would definitely feast off of that. So because if you go man on man with them and have a safety on Amari Cooper, then you can try to have a better chance with one on one with Njoku instead. So I would say that would be probably a better game plan.
And with Jonathan Jones out, as Chris talked about earlier, Jack Jones likely get tasked with covering Cooper. Jack Jones is a red hot rookie because in the last two games against Green Bay and Detroit, he has 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, one of them being a pick six, and also a forced fumble. I would say Jalen Mills gets Peoples Jones tomorrow.
Mhm.
That's what I think. Douglas Njoku. Um, Mills and Peoples Jones match up just better physically wise. And yeah, how do you think our secondary will do against our receivers?
I feel like they're gonna do fine. I noticed that Jarrell Peppers has been getting a lot more game time, and I feel like he should be more highlighted than I think Jalen Mills because he's been producing more. But I can see why they have him, Jalen Mills, in there a lot more. But I think we're gonna do fine. We coming off of a big win last week. I mean, because we needed it. So, and that was a team that averaged 35 points a game. So their offense was always cooking, even though that they had a few injuries on there. We always found a way to manage to always get to the passer before they even get the option. So I feel like our front, our defensive line is a lot more solid than the offensive line for the Browns. Because if Barmore plays, then you have him, Matthew Judon. I think Mac Wilson has been starting to be highlighted a lot more, I feel like, as well. So yeah, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be the first big test for Jack Jones in his young career. He's had a couple solid games, but he's going up against a solid wide receiver in Amari Cooper. And we just saw Amari Cooper torch former Patriot J.C. Jackson when they faced the Chargers. He made him look silly a lot. Jalen Mills, it's just always Jekyll and Hyde with him too. Like he has these moments where we're like, "Oh, I love you so much, Jalen Mills. Bill is a genius with the contract." And then other moments where, in the Pittsburgh game, he had that interception, but he was getting cooked all game long by Deontay Johnson. So he just needs to be better at covering. And Douglas Njoku, I feel as confident as possible with
Mhm.
that. Duggar is great in coverage, but I think he's going to give it all he's got. And I mean, Njoku may have a big game, but that won't be because of Duggar being a liability. I just think
Mhm.
Njoku is a solid catching tight end in this league. So we'll just have to see what happens for that or with that. Um, Now we're going to talk about the Pats offense. So the Patriots offense is far from perfect, but it feels as if every week we're making more and more progress. We're still not consistently finishing drives. We keep settling for field goals, which at some point is inevitably going to come back to haunt us. And the careless penalties continue from Isaiah Wynn on the offensive line, and Kendrick Bourne committed the same penalty twice last week. The Patriots pride themselves on being penalty-free teams, and last 3 years it's really ramped up, and I don't know why, but this is definitely concerning. And this is another factor in what derails drives is when you get penalties that make first and 10, first and long. It just it doesn't help matters at all. The play calling from Matt Patricia is still bland, but I don't have any qualms about that because that's just what's to be expected. We're dealing with a second year quarterback and a rookie quarterback. And when you have two solid running backs, it's not going to be the flashiest play calling when you're a run heavy team now. But for whatever reason, people in the New England Patriots fan community will just blame Matt Patricia for anything. They'll blame Matt Patricia for them getting a parking ticket or whatever. It's just ridiculous. I don't understand it. This is a guy who's been a defensive guy his whole career, and he's just shifting to the offensive side the last couple of years. It's going to be a work in progress, but I think he's done a heck of a job. He's, we're driving down the field. We're putting points on the board. It's not as atrocious of an offense as people thought we were going to be heading into the year. So I think Patricia's doing just fine. And to just wrap it up a little bit with the offense, whether it's a rookie Bailey Zappi or a hobbled Mac Jones that plays, the run game is going to be heavily relied on, specifically Ramondre Stevenson. You could see Kevin Harris get maybe no more than 10 carries, but Stevenson's going to get 20 to 30 carries again, just like he got last week. And Stevenson's just going to try and do what he's done all season, just continue to be dominant. What do you think, though, about all this with Harris and what it means for Damian Harris? Because obviously it's unfortunate that he sustained an injury that's out of his control, but do you think that this is the last season we see with Damian Harris in a Patriots uniform? Because there's a guy right behind him who can easily elevate to being the number one back next year with us and Stevenson. We just drafted a couple more running backs this past year in the draft with Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong. Do you think this is just Belichick's way of preparing to escort Harris out of here at the end of the year?
Yeah, I do, because I think next year we're gonna have to franchise tag him because I believe this is his 5th-year option, right, in his contract.
So this is his 4th season.
This is 4th. Okay,
we declined the 5th year, or I don't know if he got the 5th-year option.
That's why I was saying I think we need to franchise tag him if it is that. So, because I feel like we still need him for about another year or two for the other two running backs to develop. And then we also have J.J. Taylor. I mean, he's not really been doing much. So we'll definitely – I feel like you're going to see a lot more Ramondre Stevenson. I think Harris is going to be more of maybe like a first down back, and then Stevenson is going to be potentially being 2 and 3 on the second and third down. So, yeah, but I mean, I think for now we have to keep him, even though it's going to cost us a lot more.
Definitely. And an underrated aspect of Damian Harris, and an unfortunate underrated aspect of Damian Harris in his play, is that he's been a relatively injury-prone player for us. As much as I love the guy, and he's gotten better every year, I think every season where he's gotten serious playing time, he's gotten hurt and missed time. But I do like the guy, and I would rather us keep him because we could have one of the better running back rooms in the NFL consistently. Harris is a smaller running back, but he's a better, I think, pure runner than Stevenson. But Stevenson, I tell people, always reminds me of like a Marshawn Lynch, where he can just absorb contact and run through it. Nonetheless, though, Bill hit the jackpot again with drafting running backs. He has a great track record of doing that with Kevin Falk, James White, these two guys on the team now. Stephen Ridley was good for points in time. Shane Vereen. He's always had a knack for that. So we'll have to see what happens with that. I also had this theory about what the Browns defense would do against our offense. So I wondered if the Browns would bring a lot of pressure up front and like blitz a lot tomorrow to try and force whoever's at quarterback to throw more. Because as we talked about, the Patriots haven't really unleashed the floodgates with Zappi so far with the offense, as he's only throwing no more than 20 times a game. At least that's what it was with Detroit. And if Mac's playing tomorrow, he's not going to be 100%. So maybe they throw the heat at him, not to hurt him, but just to force him to throw it on his bad ankle. So do you think we could see something tomorrow where on maybe first or second down, the Browns send the heat to try and stuff us and force us to throw it on third and longs?
Yeah, I think so because I think what they're seeing in the tape is now we're going to be relying a lot more on the run game because to have it's probably going to be Bailey Zappi tomorrow to have more confidence in Zappi to able to throw the ball. But if there's too much pressure and the run game's not going, then you're going to have to force the kid to keep throwing it. So it's definitely going to be a challenge if they do a lot more blitzing and more guys in the more guys to keep him on his toes because Zappi can get out of the pocket and sort of run because there was what 2 times that there was a design run for him. So that
The
was
read option at the end was great.
yeah, that was interesting. I didn't expect that. So we got to do maybe a couple of plays like that to get them off our heels a little bit because if they're pushing more people into the box, then there's just going to be more wide open field for the outside, so you can do that. So
And obviously, I want to take a second to acknowledge that the Browns' pass rush is going to be tough to stop with Myles Garrett, one of the best pass rushers in the league, as part of the Cleveland Browns defensive line. Clowney absent obviously hurts, but I think New England's offensive line should be able to protect their quarterback and create holes in the run game away from Garrett. So Garrett's going to be going up against our left tackle, Trent Brown, tomorrow. So just doing maybe outside zone runs to the other side of Garrett or zone runs, inside zone runs to the other side of Garrett. That seems to be like the winning formula. Just keep it away from Garrett because that's only
I
going to
gotta
create
say,
trouble.
yeah, I gotta say, Cole Strange has not been as big of a disappointment as I thought. He's not. I
Are
mean,
you
because
not? You're not going to give him his flowers?
I mean, everyone was bashing Belichick, like, "Oh, what are you thinking of picking him?" Yeah, we could have got the guy from Jacksonville. I think it was Dennis Lloyd or Darius or Lloyd. As for like more on the defensive side of things, but he's holding this. He's holding it up. He's not giving up sacks and stuff. Unlike Isaiah Wynn, who got benched.
Back to
For
back weeks.
yeah, I mean that's a tall tale sign that you probably overpaid the guy. So it's because who's the one who takes over him? Is it Owenu or is it
For who?
Isaiah Wynn?
Cannon comes in.
Cannon. Okay, I thought it was Owenu, but
Yeah, so yeah.
No, yeah, I think I was mixing them up.
If we didn't have Cannon on the team, you're right though. On one it would move over because he
Okay,
can play
yeah,
tackle.
that's where I was getting confused about. But yeah, no. Anyways, I think our offensive line is starting to come together because we're having more conservative plays. And I think Matt Patricia, they're saying his actual title is the offensive line coach. It's not like I think Belichick is still holding Matt Patricia's hand as well as Joe Judge's hand to actually confirm a play, but they're just doing just enough to actually make the games like more competitive and just having the defense just shut everything down for the opposing offense to get the victory for most of the times.
Yeah, I'm going to give our offensive line their flowers because I think our offensive line is way better than people are giving it credit for, especially the interior. I mean, David Andrews is a phenomenal center. Onwenu has been great since we drafted him. And Cole Strange, I mean, yeah, I'll give him all the praise in the world. Everyone clowned on us for taking him in the first round, but he has been fantastic against guys like Hayward against Pittsburgh, and he's been great, way better than we could have ever asked for.
Yeah.
call me a homer or whatever, but that looked like a great pick by Belichick. I mean, sure, people think he might have reached or whatever, but Bill Belichick's been in the league for 48 years. I don't doubt his instincts that often, and I
Yeah.
think he proves right there that it was another solid
Yeah, I,
pick.
I question him though, Belichick, for the past couple years about some of the decisions and maybe some play calls, but he somehow finds a way to, slip it under the rug and make it seem like, oh, that's kind of actually what he wanted to do. Because everyone keeps saying, he does the unexpected. So it's interesting how he develops now the offense as well as the defense. But I gotta say though, our offensive line has been a lot better since week one. It's against Miami. So that's because Trent Brown and Cole Strange, I think, were getting burnt a couple times. That caused the fumble for a TD. So that was, I mean, it's growing pains. You just gotta live and learn. So, and they've been doing so far. They're on the right track of getting getting into a playoff spot. Hopefully.
Yeah, so that's what I was just going to lead into is that my key matchup for this week is Miles Garrett versus Trent Brown. I don't know if you heard this, but Trent Brown was actually going up against Matt Judon in practice this week.
Mhm.
They had Judon as part of the scout team to try and prep Brown for what Garrett could potentially be like. As you said, though, Brown had a terrible week against Miami to open the year, but he has been amazing since. And he'll have to be even more than amazing this week against Cleveland and Miles Garrett because Miles Garrett is just so explosive. Other key points to think about in terms of the Patriots offense versus the Browns defense. I think Devontae Parker could have a good game after taking a step back last week against Detroit. He had back-to-back great games against Baltimore and Green Bay, but last week, he was pretty much non-existent. I wouldn't have been as confident in Parker's ability to do well tomorrow if Denzel Ward was playing. And
Mhm.
Greedy Williams coming back isn't the best news for Parker as well because Greedy Williams matches up better size-wise with Devontae. But again, this is the first game that Greedy Williams is playing in since the end of the year last year. So he's going to be rusty. And the Patriots always love to pick on rusty or inexperienced corners. So
Mhm.
I feel like if we do air it out tomorrow, we could see Devontae Parker have some opportunities to make some plays. Other wide receivers that could make plays for the Pats are Kendrick Bourne and Tyquan Thornton, with Aguilar being out. I think this is great news for them. And I mean, something definitely has to be going on if this isn't the week that Kendrick Bourne gets a ton more snaps. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
his snap count has been rather limited through 5 games so far this year, but with Aguilar being out, if Bourne doesn't have big amount of playing time tomorrow, then something's going on. As we've seen last year, Bourne proved to be a good run after catch player. He did struggle last week with those two unacceptable penalties, so hopefully he can rebound from that. And Taekwon, we don't know much about him. He had some playing time in the preseason. It seemed like he was doing great in training camp. And everything that we've been told about him is that he has the potential to make something out of nothing. He's a very speedy player. He had a ridiculous 40-yard dash time. So it seems like as the weeks progress and as he gets more practice in, we can see Tyquan Thornton get more snaps as well. So that's something to look forward to as well. What do you think about Hunter Henry? We have not spent too much time
Mhm.
talking about him in
Mhm.
these recaps the last few weeks. But before I get into what I think he can do tomorrow, I just want to hear what you think Hunter Henry can potentially do tomorrow to impact the game.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have to be their number two, number three weapon for this week because as you saw last week, they used him definitely a lot more. Because there was a few times that I know one time the guy got injured, but he was able to break free and get 15, 20 yards after the catch.
It was in the first quarter. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, they're definitely using him a lot more, I would say, because just the fact that Jonnu Smith isn't in right now, and they're only trusting. At this point, you just need to have someone who you can trust for the rookie, and I feel like him and Jacoby Myers are the ones he trusts the most right now. So I feel like it's more like a security blanket for him. Because I feel like with Devontae Parker and Tyquan Thornton, they're more of like just running down the field, just vertical routes. Like they're the ones who just, either get 50-50 balls, or due to Tyquan Thornton's speed, he just outruns everyone. So with Hunter Henry and I think Jacoby Myers, they're kind of more like the mid range, I would say, passing attack in short range. But yeah, we just got to use him a lot more. 'Cause I think this is the week he'll finally get a touchdown.
Hopefully. Last year, obviously, he was a big red zone threat, so maybe that'll come into play this week against Cleveland. That was a good point about bringing up Jacoby Myers. I forgot about him and how reliable he always is, just with those routes and catching passes over the middle. He could definitely have a good game tomorrow against a more depleted Cleveland secondary. But I think Hunter Henry could have a big game tomorrow because we're going to need him in blocking situations for the run game, because we're going to have tight ends out there to block and create holes for guys like Ramondre Stevenson. We could also bring in Marcus Cannon in situations like that and have him be like a active tight end in that situation with basically a 6 offensive lineman. But getting back to Henry, he'll likely be matching up against Cleveland's strong safety, Grant Delpit. And if you do a Google search of Grant Delpit, as I did to do some research on him, it talks about how he may be a potential liability for Cleveland and their defense. So it feels like this is a matchup that New England could exploit, and that weaker secondary guy against big tight end. It feels like that this is a matchup where you could just throw it to Hunter Henry, and like you said, just have him do the rest of the work to running down the field. So yeah, I hope that we can get Hunter Henry some throws. Last week against Detroit, it seemed like Bailey Zappi had good chemistry with Henry. He threw it to him about 3 to 5 times. So hoping for more of the same tomorrow with that connection. So we're winding down to the end of this podcast. The Browns are favored by 2.5 points tomorrow. And as we do at the end of all these preview shows, Chris, what is your prediction for the game tomorrow?
Yeah, this is the first time that I'm going to say that the Pats are going to win. I've been
Wow.
right though every time that
what has happened to you
they've lost.
In this bye week.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think just because Jacoby Brissett is still developing as like an actual full starter, and I feel like the Browns have choked so many times. I just feel like, and their kicker's been off the mark half the time. He either makes, like the first game, he made like a 55, 56-yard field goal, and then, during against the Jets game, he shanks an extra point. So it's like those points can matter at the end. So I'm thinking Pats are going to win, and the score is going to be, I think, 27-13.
27-13. All right, so I am picking, as always, the Patriots to win. My score prediction is 24-20. I have in my notes, I think Zappi plays, which we both agreed with. Stevenson has another monster game in the run department. For some reason, I feel like Kevin Harris is going to get his first career touchdown.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because Belichick is notorious for not really playing rookie running backs, but in a situation like this, we don't really have a choice.
Do you think he'll play? You think he'll play more than Strong?
That's a good question, because Strong's been on the active roster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. So in retrospect, you might see Strong get more carries than Harris. I think we're looking at Stevenson getting another 25 carries. I would say Strong gets no more than 10 carries, and then maybe Harris gets 5. But I think this is just so out there in terms of the take, but I feel like it's going to be like goal line situation, 3rd and goal. we're
Mhm.
just going to throw Kevin Harris out there and give him the ball, and it's just going to
Yeah.
pile in for a touchdown. That's what I was thinking. I think Kendrick Bourne is also going to get his first touchdown of the campaign. I think he'll have a great game tomorrow. And I won't discredit what Jacoby Brissett and Nick Chubb can do for Cleveland. I think they're going to keep it close. And I think this could kind of be like that game against Tennessee last year where we beat them, but we gave up like 250 rushing yards. I think Cleveland's going to have a lot of success in the rushing game, but I still think we're going to win. And I think this game will end similar to Pittsburgh, where we have the ball with, say, 4 minutes left, and we just run out the clock with Stevenson. But I do think the Patriots are going to win tomorrow and get back to 500, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, you have any pressing points you want to bring up before we wrap this up?
I'd say Judon is, if he gets like another couple of sacks, he's gonna have another career year. Because I think he's gotten at least a sack every game, I believe.
Yeah, he's the first Patriot in franchise history to record a sack in the first 5 games.
That was the stat that they showed. It's unbelievable.
Crazy. Yeah, he had a fantastic game last week. He has been one of the best free agent signings by the Patriots in the Belichick era. Love having Judon, and we would love the Patriots were to win tomorrow. So that is going to do it for this recap. Good to be back. Hopefully the Patriots win tomorrow. If you like these types of recaps, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Me and Chris do this usually sometime every Saturday evening, Saturday afternoon. And I will be back tomorrow to recap this game against the Browns. Reminder, once again, Patriots-Browns tomorrow on CBS at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Should be a fun one. So we're going to get out of here. Thanks, everyone, for watching. You all have a good night. Thank you, Chris, for doing this with me. I almost forgot to say that.
Yeah, no problem. Good to be back. It's
good
trying
to get
trying to get back in the swing of things. It's been a couple of weeks, so
yeah, we had an extended bye week, but
a little rusty. Yeah,
a little rusty, but we hope you guys enjoy. As always, everyone, have a good night and take care.
See ya.
See ya.